wealthiest Americans. All right, how about that? Joining us now, Jonathan Strong, staff writer for Roll Call. Jonathan, even if tax rates went up on the wealthiest, the households earning more than $250,000 a year, the president demands, I mean, this would actually do almost nothing to reduce the deficit. I took a look at the Joint Tax Committee report of Congress saying that it would reduce the deficit only by 7%. Now, that's 7% out of $1.1 trillion. So, in many ways, is the president's solution more of an illusion?
Well, he's trying to sell this as a matter of fairness, and he seems to be making, progress politically on that front. But I think you have a good point, and another good question is, there isn't any theory by which this would help the economy. In fact, the estimates are it would hurt the economy, and so is now the right time for that. People are still hurting out there.
Yeah, and the president is claiming, and you heard him say this, that he has a mandate for raising taxes. In fact, I'll quote him. He said, "On Tuesday night, we found out that the majority of Americans agree with my approach." Jonathan, that's not true. Exit polls ask the question, should taxes be raised to help cut the budget deficit? And the answer? No, by nearly 2 to 1. So is the president making a false claim here?
Well, I think, there were some figures in some exit polls that I've seen Democrats point to, but the larger point here is really that President Obama won re-election the same way that George W. Bush did, which is to define and tear down his opponent early on. And that's not the type of approach that really gives you the kind of mandate of unifying the country behind your governing agenda. So my personal opinion is that it's a wishful thinking that anyone comes out of this election with a mandate.
Yeah, just before the president spoke yesterday, House Speaker John Boehner had this to say. Take a listen.
The problem with raising tax rates on the wealthiest Americans is that more than half of them are small business owners. We know from Ernst & Young 700,000 jobs would be destroyed. We also know that it would slow down our economy. Raising tax rates will slow down our ability to create the jobs that everyone says they want.
And in fact, twice during his first term, the president agreed with that, saying that raising taxes would hurt the economy. And actually, when he said that, growth was at 5.6%, and now it's even worse. So by calling for higher taxes, is the president really contradicting what he's said for the last 4 years?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, clearly you have the president and Speaker Boehner in different places on paper. But what's really interesting to me is, Republicans are still in full tailspin mode after these elections. And so you've heard him say kind of remarkable things. Reporters, we were chatting about these appearances he's made. We're asking, who is this person and what have you done with John Boehner, because it didn't sound like him. So I think that on paper they're in different places, but Speaker Boehner is wobbly right now, and President Obama is feeling feisty. So if I am expecting one side to fold, it's definitely Speaker Boehner at this point.
There is some light here between the two sides. Boehner says he's willing to compromise by closing some tax loopholes, limit or eliminate tax deductions and exemptions, which would result in wealthier Americans paying more taxes and thus increasing government revenue. Is that really the potential compromise here without actually raising the tax rates? You do get the wealthier Americans paying more taxes that way.
Well, yeah, you could engineer it that way in such a way that it would be a significant win for President Obama on the substance. And I think that this should really be a slam dunk for Obama. The danger that we face in terms of no deal happening, I think, is that you're hearing voices on the left say to Obama, no, hold out for a better deal, we're on top here. That could end up, plaguing any kind of negotiations, because you may have the Democrats decide that we're going to hold out for more and end up overplaying their hand.
Well, the biggest driver of our debt and deficits are entitlements. What are the chances, Jonathan, that those programs could actually be reformed with you know, some fairly simple alterations. For example, raising the retirement age for the next generation of retirees, not the current ones, but young people who are in their 20s. Medicare choice and competition, that's been thrown out there. Block granting Medicaid back to the states. What are the chances of entitlement reform?
Well, those are some of the things that are on the table, but I'm not sure we're really quite close to achieving that kind of thing, and it certainly isn't going to happen in the lame duck Congress. We may get some kind of short-term deal, but we're not going to see that kind of significant reform to those entitlements because, in part because Speaker Boehner has said he doesn't feel the lame duck is the place to do that kind of deal. We're more likely to see something short-term that gets us, you know, into the next year without going over the fiscal cliff.
All right, Jonathan Strong, good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.